Gold ingots, mainly used to make powered rails and the eventual netherite ingot here or there. A useful resource to have, but rarely one that you will go out of your way to gather. Not unless you're building massive farms with copious amounts of powered rails. Modded Minecraft, on the other hand, tends to have a long list of recipes that use gold, and that does start to warrant farming for it. Hello humans and other species, I'm Batsy, and today we are going to take a look at 5 different methods of farming gold with the Create mod. There are many ways to gather gold. From mining in caves, using tunnel bores, or even just hunting for bastions. Today, we are going to focus in the basic methods that can be reliably automated. That means farming piglins with the common vanilla farms. Using Create to produce red sand and getting gold from washing that. Or alternatively producing soul sand to wash that one instead to get the gold. There is another chain with Create that I won't reveal for now. And the last method is the vanilla mechanic that spawns piglins in any nether portal. I haven't seen anyone use that to farm gold, and probably for a very good reason. But I thought it was funny, so we're going to test that anyway. The first farm I made, it's the classic Zombified piglin. Even though the premise of the video is that we are using the Create mod, I included it because this farm is honestly so much easier to set up with Create. We don't need to aggro the piglins or use turtle eggs or anything like that. All I'm doing here is to push them around with a minecart that carries a massive wall with it. That pushes all of the piglin into the portal so they can be more easily killed. The portal also helps with the spawn rates, since those that move to the other side won't count for the nether spawn cap anymore. At least that's my understanding. It's impressively simple to build, the material cost is super cheap, and I'm sure this can be easily scaled up and made more efficient. The only caveat is the use of the portal, because those can be annoying to link sometimes, and that it requires access to the nether roof to make it more simple. But in general, I feel like the biggest pro of this farm is how easy, cheap, and simple it is to make. On the other side, I removed the bottom of the portal so they fall straight into their deaths. This felt like the most simple way of going about it. I might end up adding a basin later to convert the nuggets into ingots, so it's easier to store and count. But for the sake of the showcase, this is good enough, and I might make a second killing option to use a sword with Fortune 3, see how much better that is. The second somewhat vanilla farm is this ugly obsidian box. As explained in the wiki page, Zombified piglins have a chance to spawn on the bottom frame of the portal in the Overworld in Java edition if any nether portal block above receives a block tick. So all I did is have as many bottom frames as possible. This can obviously be upscaled a lot too, but I think we can all agree that there is probably better uses for obsidian than this farm. The rest is fairly simple. I'm just moving the zombies with the minecart again. It's the easiest way of setting it up, and the material cost is close to 0. I'm also using some mechanical saws to kill them, which means that we could also test to have a sword with Fortune. But given the amount of piglins spawning, I think this might not be it. But it was a fun attempt. Next, we have the more conventional Create production chains. We won't go over every single small machine because that's not the purpose of the video today. But what is very relevant is the cobble generation. It all depends on how much cobble we can produce, so obviously want to produce the exact same amount for every scenario. To make sure that's the case, we will be using 1 layer of my cobble generator. It produces a stack per cycle, so it should provide with a decent representation for the test. For the first production chain, we will be making red sand. And even though it looks like a lot, this is quite a simple process. We generating cobblestone at the very left. That's the very first step we will always need. That gets processed with crushing wheels into gravel. The gravel gets processed with more crushing wheels again to produce the sand. We take the sand and we wash it up to make clay. Then we compact said clay to produce clay blocks. We cook the clay blocks to make terracotta. We crush said terracotta with more crushing wheels to make the red sand. And finally, we wash up the red sand for a chance to receive some gold. A few steps, but we made it there. This is the most common gold farm with Create. I have one of these on my YouTube channel, and nearly every other Create YouTuber I know has one too. But of course there is a second way of making gold, and this one requires less steps. Like before, it all starts with the cobblestone. It always starts with cobble for create. We yet again crush it down to produce the gravel. And we crush it one more time to produce the sand. This time though, we're going to haunt the sand to convert it into soul sand. And we will be washing the soul sand for a chance to get some gold. It takes less steps, but the odds in paper always read much lower. There is also the caveat that we are getting a bajillion quartz as a side product. But what if that's not an issue? What if we do something with it instead of burning it with lava? There is another way of producing red sand, and that comes from granite. Crushing granite is a 1-to-1 ratio recipe of producing red sand. To reach said granite, we first need to make diorite, but that's as simple as combining the cobblestone that we are already producing with some quartz that we just established we are getting a ton of. It's a bit awkward to make because the diorite requires a mechanical crafter. There is no recipe with the mixer. And the one with the packing mechanic is a different deal that includes lava and calcite. The only reason I'm using mixers is because we do have this recipe on my SMP, so it was easier to set up for this showcase. It produces the same amount of diorite, so it won't alter the outcome anyway. But that raises the question, which one of these methods will produce more gold in an hour? Will it be this amazing portal thingy that looks horrible and spawn a piglin every full moon? Will it be the common red sand farm that most of us use on the daily? Or maybe this awkward-to-build production chain that will require a ton of mechanical crafters and that after a long search through YouTube, I couldn't find a single farm with this design. To be fair, I did made one myself that was based on making granite, but it was part of a bigger factory, so it doesn't really count. And I'm sure many others have used granite in the past. Some mod packs make the use of granite a lot less awkward, so I don't doubt this is well known for some. Still interesting to see that it doesn't seem particularly popular in YouTube. Regardless, what will it be? Which one of these methods will take the cake home?
1 hour later.
There is definitely some interesting numbers going on. I mean, surprised to no one the portal farm did pretty much 0. And I couldn't be bothered to test it with looting 3, which by the way, I think I said fortune several times, but I assume everyone understood that I meant looting. Regardless, the Terracotta chain did decently, considering the small size of the cobble generator. But I'm surprised it didn't produce a whole lot more gold than the Souls End variant. I assumed Souls End was going to be quite a bad setup, all things considered. The vanilla nether farm I did assumed it was doing to outperform most, if not all, other farms. It can also be made a lot more efficient than the quick one I made, but to be fair, every other farm could also be upscaled and made more efficient anyway. The biggest surprise is still the granite alternative. Surprise because I wasn't even planning on making this one, I just thought would be fun to test midway through the video. But also surprised by a couple of factors. The soul sand portion of the farm obviously still produces some gold. We want the quartz, but doesn't mean that the gold stopped getting produced, and that represented more than 2/3 of what it produced without all of the granite stuff going on. I don't know why, but I assumed the gold production from the soul sand would get reduced to almost nothing, and most of it would come from the granite itself. Though that happened anyway, the gold production from the granite section is mind-blowing to me. I totally wasn't expecting that. It almost tripled the production from the Terracotta chain. I'm totally going to have to make a new gold farm video soon and make this thing a lot more efficient, and also to somehow make it work with mechanical crafters. That's going to be interesting. But either way, I think minus the granite part, the rest look as one would expect, to be honest. Though that only shows the raw production and nothing else. So which one do you think it's the actual best method? Let me know in the comments, and I would love to know the why. For me personally, I think the normal vanilla farm is the one that left me more interested to try make more efficiently. I saw several problems with the quick one I made, and it felt different than the usual production chains from Create, and those I do all the time anyway. I hope the Fangies enjoyed this little test, and that maybe you all learned a thing or two. Thanks you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all for the next one.